Okay, today we are talking about communicating with actors. Through this video, I'm going to provide some of my tips, suggestions, things like that will help you to communicate with actors as directors. As a director, you could have a million ideas, a very clear vision of what you want, but if you can't clearly communicate with your actors, it doesn't matter. I've worked with directors that are amazing in the vision aspect, but because they can't properly help guide actors in a clear way, it doesn't come together because the actors don't understand what the director is wanting and things like that. So beginning exercising this now, if directing is something that you truly want to do, is very important. And so I'm going to talk you through some of those tips. Um, First off, it's important for you as a director to find your voice and how it works for you to communicate with actors. I know that every director has their own different style and approach, so that makes this a little bit tricky because what I suggest may not necessarily work for you. But I'm gonna try to provide tips that kind of across the board are gonna be really helpful. The tricky thing is though balancing your style as a director with what you know specific actors' needs are. You need to be flexible within that. So have your skeleton of how you work as a director, how you want to come into the rehearsal space and work. That could even look like the order of scenes you're going to work in, or how you're going to check off those goals. But then understand that every director or every actor receives feedback and things like that differently. So you will have to make adjustments depending on the actors you're working with. So I'll talk about a little bit more about that in a second. Tip number one, always have a clear goal for your rehearsal. This is going to help guide you as a director, but this is also going to help guide the actors. Clearly state your goal at the beginning. Today, our goal is to block the first 2 pages. Today, our goal is to focus on transitions. Today, our goal is to explore movement work, things like that. If you state that at the beginning, everyone in the room knows what the goal is and will be a little bit more driven to achieve that goal. They don't feel like their time is being wasted, and you as a director will feel more confident going into it, saying, "Okay, at the end of this day, I know it will be successful if this and this happens." That's tip number one. Tip number two: don't line read. Sometimes that's at any point for a director that can be a challenge, but particularly new directors. If actors are not doing exactly what you want, it's easy to want to go up there and be like, say it this way and move this way. Sure, short term that can be helpful, but what that is doing, it's an easy fix that isn't sustainable, because that actor is just going to repeat exactly what you do, if they can successfully do so, um, and it's not going to feel organic at all. It's not being informed by anything else other than, oh, I'm supposed to move and speak like this. So, as a director, always bring it back to what is the intention of the character, what is the character's objective, what are the circumstances around the character and this scene. So, if you support it with a lot of that groundwork you've already done and that analysis that you and the actors have done, then they're understanding on a deeper level, oh, I need to say it this way, or I need to do this in order to achieve my objective, or in order to accurately capture the circumstances of the scene. For example, if it's a cold scene, it's supposed to be cold, and the actor is not doing it right, and you say you should move your body this way and speak in this way. That's not as helpful as if you say, remember, it's really cold, get really specific, it's X degrees, there's snow, things like that. I need to see that. I'm not seeing that right now. So just really go back to that. Or your actor or your character wants this from so and so. How are you going to get it? And then talk about tactics. If they're giving you something really soft, say, okay, let's change that tactic. and let's do something that's more assertive, and then find a tactic that fits that. That is my suggestion for there, in terms of getting specific things out of actors. Don't line read. Next, okay, this is also very important. It's not helpful as a director to say, I really liked that, or I didn't like that. That's not helpful. That's too subjective. Something that's more helpful is saying that was clear or that was unclear. That's something I use all the time. And that's very helpful to communicate to the actor of, oh, I wasn't clearly portraying my objective, or things like that. It's a much more objective term, and it's more helpful for the actor, and it takes emotion out of the situation. 4, utilize activities and exercises. This is where my bias comes a little bit in more, but I find that it's very helpful. You could have your own approach where you say, we're going to work through the script in this way and block and explore it. But sometimes it just doesn't help to drive it into the ground and do it over and over again. You'll find with certain actors, you're like, okay, we have this challenge and I'm trying to get through, and it's not quite happening. And so using exercises and specific activities can be really important opportunities for breakthroughs. Partially because it can take the focus from, like, we're not just in the script, we're focusing on the script, kind of takes us out from that, and gets a certain result that then you can say, look, apply this here. For example, I'll provide an example that I use all the time. Something that actors struggle with a lot is if they get stuck in the lines, that it's obviously not the first time they've read it, but as an actor, it's obviously you want to keep the illusion of it being the first time. But if they memorize the lines a certain way or things like that, they just get in a very habitual way of doing it, of breathing, of pausing, of saying it. Disorientation is your best friend as a director and an actor. You want to force your actors into a state of disorientation. This looks like doing something like balancing a dowel on your hand as you say the lines, or giving them any type of activity that forces them to focus more on the activity than the lines. Looking for car keys in the room, like actually looking for them. Jumping up and down, building a fort while they say their lines. And then you can say, look, that felt entirely different. We need to keep that feeling in it. And so you could add disorienting activities into it, where, okay, now your character is reading a book, things like that. It's a very helpful tool and exercise. There's many more exercises out there that I could, if you ask me specific questions, I can try to come up from my reserve of exercises, or you can always look online. They're very helpful. Number 5, as a director, you need to create a positive space for your actors. We've all heard stories of those directors that are abusive, arguably, and the actors don't enjoy being there. If your actors enjoy being there, if they feel safe, if it's a place where they feel open to exploration, number 1, the work's going to be better because they're willing to explore and trust you and each other. And number 1, and secondly, they're going to want to be there. So that's very important. And number 6, hold your actors to your expectations. This can look like in terms of them not being on time, them not showing up, them not doing their work that you've asked them to do. Hold them to those expectations, and if necessary, sit down and have those talks with them. Those are a few of my suggestions. Just a couple more thoughts. Once again, I said this at the beginning, but know the actors that you're working with. Get to understand how they work. Sometimes you'll find that so-and-so works really well if we sit and just talk through it, where another person might succeed more with these types of exercises, things like that. You'll find with beginning actors, you'll need to provide a little more specifications for them, whereas more advanced actors will be more willing to follow impulses and more successful at that. So just be aware of who you're working with. Once again, those are some of my tips. If you have any specific questions, let me know. I'm excited for you guys, if you choose to do so, to have the opportunity to get your scenes on their feet, to practice some of these skills. And yeah, give it a try. Let me know how it's going and touch base with me. Thanks so much, guys.